I want to welcome you to the Pro Mindset Podcast. The Pro Mindset Podcast is all about diving into the headspace that results in championship performance. High-performing athletes, winners, have this mental flow and have a positive headspace for their performances and success. Join me, Craig Domann, sports attorney and NFL agent, on this podcast. I will interview pro athletes, college athletes, football coaches, and sports personalities. Together, we can discover how you can get in the flow and have your own pro mindset. I want to welcome Bill Nagy to Pro Mindset Podcast today. Bill, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Craig, thanks for having me on, man.
Okay, so I got to give everybody a little bit of a background about you. You're an offensive lineman, do-it-all, versatile guy from University of Wisconsin. You were drafted in 2011, the lockout year, in the 7th round by the Dallas Cowboys. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Bill, let's go back to when you were playing at Wisconsin and you started at multiple positions, even at tight end. What was it like playing for the Badgers, and what was kind of your role and what was your identity with the program?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so I didn't grow up a Wisconsin boy, so to say. You just quickly learn what the tradition means to the people of the state of Wisconsin. Going in, I was originally recruited by Barry Alvarez, and the transitional year when Brett was taking over the program, he kind of took over my recruiting that summer. So it was a transition year. My freshman year coming in was Brett's first year as the full-time head coach. So it was fun just growing along with him as he took reins of the program. And obviously I was a 5-year guy, redshirted, so I had a great high school program, but didn't see the field until really my second, third year with the program. And it's just such a rich tradition with the offensive line at Wisconsin. So every snap that I had an opportunity, it was earned. It wasn't like, oh, shoot, we don't have anybody. We were just going to throw a body in there. The depth that we had, it truly was one of those where every single shot, every opportunity I earned, and the competition was there. And I think that's why when I had an opportunity at the next level, I was able to step in, and it was no different. I think a lot of guys, they kind of get that shock factor when they get there. For me, that was just football. It was, you got to show up and you got to compete every single day. If it's Tuesday, if it's a Wednesday, your ass is, you got to get in gear because there's going to be somebody behind you that wants the extra snaps. And that's what it was. And there's ups and downs. And my junior year had a kind of off the field injury, just an absolute freak deal where in Madison, it's a fairly big campus, and you see some of the schools, they have guys riding mopeds around, and it was a moped accident. A woman ran a red light. And fortunate it wasn't worse, but that really derailed, my starting spot that worked up, so many, the first 3 years to earn that. And quite frankly, that out of the 15 guys that we had in our offensive line room, I think 14 of them made it to the NFL, and there's still guys that are playing today and some of the highest at their positions. So there was absolutely no lack of talent there. But I think going back to it, Craig, it was earning my identity was just showing up every single day and earning everything.
Well, Bill, that's remarkable. And Wisconsin is kind of known as offensive line U. And there's no doubt that everybody to the right and everybody to the left is an NFL prospect when you play at the University of Wisconsin. Let's go back to the moped accident, because it was a pretty serious accident. And if I remember right, dislocation, ankle, all these different things. What was the hardest part about recovering from that injury?
The deal was you just put in so much work. And going back to that injury, the timing of it could not have been worse. It was riding home from a summer workout literally 2 weeks before training camp started. And, if you had a little bit more time, you could rehab back, and it was one of those injuries that just kind of lingered, right? It wasn't one of those where a doctor said, you're out 10 weeks. It was one of those that just kept lingering, and it kind of haunted me that whole junior season. So the hardest part was, one, seeing your spot absolutely disappear from a younger guy, right?
Absolutely.
And being completely helpless too. But also seeing a lot of my buddies that, teammates, friends, and you grow together with these guys, over the course of, the year, and they really become your brothers. You see your roommate who's the starting quarterback, and then you see your other buddy who's, projected to be a early round pick, and you're like, dude, that was freaking me 2 months ago.
Right.
And you just watch it slip away one day at a time. And on top of just feeling crummy, you're rehabbing back, you're not healthy. So the hardest part was the internal battle. It wasn't actually going to work and rehabbing and any of that stuff. It was just the games that you play with, within your own mind. That was the toughest part.
No doubt about it. And I'm intimately aware of your situation and just the mental battle of playing the movie in your head of what might have been. You could have been an early draft pick. You could have been a primetime guy, and it kind of took that opportunity. It dampened that opportunity. When you got to the NFL, you unfortunately came in a year, probably the worst year up to that point you could come into, because there was no OTAs, and the Cowboys drafted you in the 7th round, but they also drafted an offensive guard at the same position in the 4th round. And yet in less than 35 days, you were the starting offensive guard for the Cowboys in week 1, and he was on the bench. What did you do, and how did Wisconsin prepare you? And what was your mental edge that you had, just as who Bill Nagy is, to give you that opportunity to beat him out, when you and I both know they gave him every opportunity to win the job? They wanted him to win the job. They drafted him in the 4th round for a reason.
Yeah, I go back to, the most dangerous thing, the most dangerous person in the world is somebody with nothing to lose. I knew that the odds were stacked up against me, and that had been my whole deal. I already lost my spot. I already saw my career kind of take a side turn, and I felt fortunate just to even have that opportunity, where a lot of guys come in with an entitlement. A lot of guys don't have that competition every day. Going back, I wish I knew what I know now. But, dude, the guys that took my spot at Wisconsin, these guys were first-round picks. These guys are Pro Bowl guys that are playing today still, right? So I'm just like, man, I'm not even good enough to start on my own team. How am I going to start for the Cowboys, right? So you go into training camp, and you're just like, dude, I just want to make the team. And worst-case scenario, if I can be on the practice squad and just stick around and show these guys, my work ethic and showing up every day. And it's funny because how short of the training camp was, and it was, 30 days or whatever it was. It was just the mentality of taking, one day at a time, one practice at a time. The way that we worked at Wisconsin, it was like practice in the NFL. Like, there's no scout teams. There's no, you got to service it yourself. You get 35 plays of practice. If you can't ball out for the 15 reps that you get full speed, there's no tomorrow, you shouldn't be there. And that's where that mentality was I have 10 plays today that I got to play my ass off. And just taking one play at a time, full go. And that was the mentality I had. And it was just one of those where all of a sudden, the coaches are just like, hey, man, keep doing your thing. You get, one of the coaches, the tight ends coaches, like, Bill, keep working hard, man. It's being noticed. One thing leads to another. One guy gets cut, injury here or there, and getting reps with the ones. It was a short time, but it was just taking one play one day at a time. And it's just the cliche stuff that you hear, but that's what it was. You never know when you're going to get that opportunity. But where I came from in Wisconsin and how competitive it was, having to earn everything, and that's what it was at the next level. And granted, they try to give spots away at the NFL. There's not a lot of development going on, and that's how it's going to continue to be. But that was an asset to me, and just that mindset, and how good of a coaching staff that I came from too. It was darn near the same pro-style offense, just different terminology. And I know that the game's changed and it will continue to evolve, but it wasn't, I didn't come from a gimmick offense. It truly was darn near the same offense that the Cowboys were running that I was at Wisconsin. So that helped too.
Let's go back to either Dallas or Wisconsin. and talk about if you were advising a high school kid coming to Wisconsin or a college kid going to the NFL, knowing what you know from being a ball player as well as being a college coach for a period of time, what would you tell those guys?
I think you just have to have a strong foundation. And I was fortunate enough that I did have that with my parents and good coaches and good people around me. People don't necessarily have that. But one, you have to understand why you're there, right? You have to understand what your priorities are. And goal setting is not just a saying. Like, you have to truly understand where you're headed. Because if you don't, there's so many different distractions that are going to lead you down a wrong path. So understand why you're there. For me, it was always, you go to school to get your education, period. If football's taken away from you, football is going to end, and it's going to end for everybody. And that's the same thing going from, high school to college. It's the same thing I would tell guys that go from college and have an opportunity to play professionally. And it's the saying, NFL, what does that stand for? Not for long. I see guys struggle with it all the time. It's like, what's your identity? Do you want to be Bill Nagy, the football player? Or do you want to be, hey, Bill was a great football player, but this is what his potential is? And that's where, my mindset was, but everybody goes through that transition and it's tough. But going back to your question, the advice, it would just say, understand why you're there and understand what your goals are.
Okay, so who's the best football player at any level you ever played with?
I think when I was in Dallas, and people, I don't want to say people forget, but when DeMarcus Ware was in his prime, that dude was unblockable. Like, nobody could even touch that guy. Was one of the best of all times, easily.
He left Dallas and went to Denver and still was good.
Yeah.
So he was able to have longevity and very high-level performance. What did DeMarcus Ware have a little bit more of than maybe some of the other guys in the locker room besides God-given ability?
And I think there's some things that you just can't explain, right? And I think that goes back to the God-given ability. Right. But I think for him, it was mental. He knew he was the best. And in his mind, there was nobody that was going to block him. It didn't matter whether it was practice, whether it was a Sunday night, Monday night game in playoffs. That's just what it was. So for him, it was that edge. It gets to a certain point where guys lose that. It's just not there anymore. And that guy had that edge for a long time. And I think some guys, they have flashes of it. But once you lose it, it's going to be downhill. And it's done. The window closes. And every guy in the NFL, they have their number. Every college guy, they have their priorities. Something changes. You have an injury here, and it just doesn't become important to you like it used to be. And whatever time that is where you just lose it and you kind of forget that it's a child's game and that you're lucky and fortunate to play it. But everybody has that period, and I remember when it was for me. You're going through injuries, and it's not fun anymore because it's hard enough to just exist in the NFL and compete, period. When you're facing injuries and you're battling uphill and you feel like shit every day, you're like, man, I've lost it. This is it. And even if you were healthy, you just lose it. And that's, going back to, what's the difference maker? It's that edge. I'm trying to do my best to explain it, but it's a tough thing. Unless you go through it and you truly have witnessed it firsthand, it's hard to really explain.
I think it's an alignment of several things. It's good health. You really have a strong belief in yourself. You still love the game. You still are motivated about what you're doing. You're seeing results out of your hard work, so you continue to work because you're seeing the fruits of your labor. You're getting results from your production and your activity. It's easy for you to not have FOMO, fear of missing out. It's easy to say no because you're in alignment. It's not hard to do that. Guys are wanting to go out and party the night before games or whatever it might be. You go, hey, I'm good. I also think that guys that have the edge don't abuse power because power comes from money, power comes from fame. And we all have patterns of behavior. And when guys get a little bit out of whack in their patterns, whether it's their habits or schedule, whatever it might be, then they lose their edge.
Yep.
because it's like if your dream is to do X, Y, and Z and you've already accomplished X, Y, and Z, you might lose your edge.
Right.
One of the things that I've always said is that football is not – it's a thinking game, but it's not a thinking game. Because if you think about it, you wouldn't do it. It's a very violent sport, and you're putting your body in harm's way almost every play, and so you can't think about it, even though you've got to be a thinker in terms of learning your playbook, knowing your competition, knowing your game plan, all that stuff. But when you start thinking about what could happen if things go south on me, you lose your edge as well.
Yeah. When you're not thinking, you're playing your best and you're just cutting it loose. And you get between the lines and it just you become a different, it sounds as crazy as it sounds, is like you just become a different person. Like you're just in that mode where you're not thinking. You're just, this is what it is, right? You know?
Well, you're almost
as soon as
in
you start thinking, as soon as you start thinking and you're like, man, this isn't right. And the light bulb goes off and you're like, man, I lost it. Like this, I'm not supposed to be here right now. And as soon as that goes off, it's whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to any other factor that you just named, that's really when it goes off. And as soon as you do start thinking that, you couldn't have framed it better.
Okay, so let's talk about two guys that are playing this weekend that everybody's making fun of because they're so old, and that's Drew Brees and Tom Brady. How do guys like that keep playing into their 40s?
I think those guys absolutely just love the game. And the cool thing about it is, if you can fight through a lot of this stuff, and those guys have both had a ton of adversity, but they've also had a lot of success. And you talk about two guys that have won Super Bowls, they've won championships, they've tasted that, and those guys don't do it. Like their motivation, it's not about the money anymore. It's not about what other people think of them. It truly is because they enjoy it and they just love it, and there's nothing else like it. And when you get to a point where you don't need something anymore, that's when you can truly appreciate it. And I think that's where those guys are at. They appreciate the process. They know how much work goes into it. They love the teammates. They love all the aspects around it because they can truly, they're at that point, and they've turned the point where they can just take a step back and just say, man, there's nothing like this, and I only get so much time to do it. Why would I walk away from it? But that's not the reality for 99% of the other guys out there, because they're like, shit, man, I got to make it to the next contract. I got to freaking get my bank account right. I have to do this because of this factor, or I'm hanging on, I'll probably get my butt cut, or whatever it is, or this is my identity. Those guys have both built businesses outside of football too. Like Drew Brees he's going to be a commentator. He's got a media career set up. Tom Brady has everything and then some. His wife makes more money than him. Like, he doesn't need it. Right?
He doesn't need it. So here's the thing that's funny. Guys go to college and they get a Scully. They're excited about football. And they think they got the girl card and the party card and all these things. And then they get there and find out it's a business. Right. And they have to be transformed in their mind about what it's really about, because it's not what they think it's about. Then they get burnt out on football. A lot of guys get burnt out on ball, and they just want to get paid. And they are getting paid while they're going to college, but they don't see the money, so they don't feel like they're getting paid, but they really are getting paid.
Right.
And then when they show up in the NFL, and I'm not talking about the first-round pick that's got $20 million guaranteed. I'm talking about everybody else. Most guys as rookies have a hop in their step. They're excited about, really getting paid for something that they've been doing for free in their minds their whole life. And then they get paid. Most of them don't, but the guys that do. And now I'm getting back to Brady and Brees.
Yeah.
Those guys still have a rookie mindset.
Mm-hmm.
They still have that joy of just playing. And that's hard to do.
It's very hard to do. Yeah.
And in the business of the game, the business kills the joy. The business kills the fun.
Right.
Because your best friend that you like to go fishing with or golfing with, you're talking on the phone on a Tuesday night, and you show up the next day, and he's already up in the GM's office getting cut.
Right.
And you're like, what happened?
Yeah, it's funny, and I've talked with a few guys about it, but the lifestyle is There's nothing like it. It's hard to compare it. But at the same time, you know, you reach the pinnacle and all the goals, everything is great, and you're in the league, you're playing, you know, for one of the storied franchises. And then you get there and you're like, yeah, this is cool. You're getting paid. Things are awesome. But just like you said, it can also be a pretty lonely place too. You're away from your family. You know, you have teammates, but do you have not a lot of guys are lucky to stay in one place for an extended period of time. So you make friends, but a lot of guys, they're not there long enough to really make long-term relationships with guys in an NFL locker room. It's different from college. When you're in the class of 2006, you know that you're going to have your buddies there for the most part for at least the next 3 to 5 years. In the NFL, you could have a buddy for 2 days and then he's out, or that could be you. It's hard to explain the lifestyle, and it's hard and this is not, you know, asking or saying anybody should feel sorry for it, but you get to that point and you think it's going to be something, and it's just a business. Like you said, it's just something different. And it's having that mental mindset to really just push through it and enjoy it. But then it just goes from one extreme to another. You go through a long season, you're busting your butt, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, recess for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then you come back to it, and it's like, what? The lifestyle is absolutely crazy. You know, and sometimes that's what gets the best out of guys, is going from 0 to 100 to both extremes. Going from completely, you know, your butt's here at 6 a.m. or you're getting fined, to I'll see you in 3 months. You know, be smart.
Well, the other thing, Bill, that
good luck, right?
It's very difficult to live on the extremes, and in the NFL, you live on the extremes in both cases during the season and during the off season. And I think one of the things that the fans don't really think about, because all they care about is what's going on Sunday afternoons, is the havoc it plays on relationships and marriages and families. You didn't have kids when you were in the league, but can you imagine just disappearing when you go to training camp and seeing them on Tuesdays? And you get to see them, but your life is football.
Yeah.
And then in the off season, you're there all the time.
Right.
They're like, Dad, don't you have to go to work?
Oh, it's so true. And even for coaches. And that I was lucky enough to have the perspective, you know, as a player. And I wish I had the perspective of a player than transitioning into a coach. I wish I knew how much work that the coaches were putting in and what their hours looked like. You kind of knew it, but, you know, when all of a sudden it's 3-4 o'clock on a Wednesday, and that's a Wednesday work day in the NFL, and you're there from, you know, 6 a.m. to the weight room, and then all of a sudden it's 4 or 5 o'clock, put in a little extra time, and you're home for dinner. You don't realize that those coaches are going to be there until 10, 11 at night. And you don't understand where the game plan and where all the other stuff comes from. Like you kind of do if you actually said, hey, you sat somebody down and said, hey, do you understand how much work goes into this? You know it, but you don't know it until you actually do it firsthand. So it's the perspective thing, and it's being present and being able to really invest your time, say, hey, when I'm here, I'm here. And a lot of guys don't, as crazy as it sounds. And quite frankly, a lot of guys in the locker room, it's kind of sad. I think fans care more about the result of the game than some of the guys in the locker room. And because it's become such a business, and guys are showing up, and yeah, they're playing for their job, but you see quickly, like you lose a game, guys get over it pretty darn quick. Some guys don't, but a lot of them do. And I think that would be startling, and it would be alarming if you're, you know, a fan and all you see is the Sundays and all you see is the Saturdays. Some guys are just like, yeah, whatever, dude. I'm going to go live my life and we're good. But it's just a different perspective.
No doubt. And the other thing I would say, though, is that guys like Breeze and Brady do care.
Oh, those guys care more than anything.
And so
they bring along guys with them. So having those staples in locker rooms and being able to, you know, look up to guys like that. And for me, when I was in Dallas, the guys that I looked up, the one guy that I really looked up to is Jason Witten. That guy had he cared more than anybody. And I would put him at the same level as a Brady, a Breeze, you know, the Iron Man guy that didn't miss snaps. Like, that guy is as tough as it comes. And you could tell that attitude and that mentality rubbed off on the locker room. But then you go somewhere different, and it couldn't be more different. And there's fake caring, and then there's actually, you could tell that guy's invested. And that's easy to see. And guys are smart. They know that.
Well, I think in the NFL, because it's a business, players have to make business decisions. And I see more business decisions in the 17th week, the last game of the season, than any other week of the year. Because if you're a team that's been eliminated from the playoffs, the last thing you want to do as a player is spend your off season rehabbing.
Right.
And so I'm watching, week 17 this year, and I'm sitting with one of my sons, and we're going, God, that was horrible tackling. I told my kid, I said, hey, dude, he doesn't want to tackle. It's because he doesn't want to get hurt. Right? Yeah. And he's hoping one of the other 10 guys make the tackle because he doesn't want the wear and tear on his body. And he sure as heck doesn't want to have off-season surgery. So, some guys are coming into their contract year, or, they're in their contract year and they're coming into the free agency season. The last thing you want to do is kill your leverage by being hurt.
Right.
So the thing about it is because it's such a business and there's, a multi-billion-dollar industry, players become businessmen.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that apply to college? When you look back at Wisconsin, it's a business there too. I mean, it's a business in college football now. How is it different, though, between the business of college football and the business of pro football?
It's just the idea of, the reward or what you get or what you earn. It's the tangible. Like in college, like you said, you don't know you're getting paid, but you're getting paid. In the NFL, you're getting a check ever, and it's getting direct deposit and you see it, right? So in college, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And you guys, I think, just being, in a coaching seat at one point, guys they're getting smart and they understand that college is a business. And I think towards the tail end of my career, and we're talking in college, 2008, 2010, right after that, and I think there's been a lot of different, changes in the landscape and, from high school recruiting to evaluation and the business that goes around training players for the combine, and from an agent side, like you understand the business that's around it. And I feel like I was kind of on that last piece of where it still was a little bit, normal's not the right word, but not as extreme. And now I think kids understand that it's a business, and and players have the leverage. And you see how much money some of these coaches are getting paid, and you see this stuff just, front line, newsletter, the whole deal. You see it on ESPN, the coaching carousel. You understand how much money is really in it, and you know that it's a business. So I think college players are becoming more in tune to it. And you start seeing it with guys that are starting to hold out on bowl games, and they're making a business decision. And who do they have in their ear? Is it somebody from back home? Is it an agent? Is it a coach that's just looking out for their well-being? And there's a number of different factors. But I do know that was never the case. But if somebody said back when I was playing, and this is not that long ago, we're talking 10 years. If somebody said, hey, I'm going to sit out of the Capital One Bowl because I'm going to start training for the combine, they'd be like, dude, get out of this locker room. Like, what are you talking about? That's not how we do things around here.
Exactly.
But now it's like, oh, no, dude, it's good. He's making a business decision. I completely understand. And now there's 50 bowls. That's just like the mentality, and that's just the landscape of everything. It's just all about branding to where there's no merit behind anything anymore. It's just a business. And it's just about following the money, right? If you're not in the playoffs or any type of tradition-rich bowl game, it doesn't matter anymore. It's all business decision stuff. But that's what it's become. And college players are becoming very, very in tune with it. And it's operating more like the NFL.
Well, there's no question that college football is really college professional football, because you've got the NLI right around the corner getting paid for their name and likeness. You've got guys that are transferring through the portal like free agency. The transfer portal has become a monster. There's freedom of movement. If you don't like your coach, you don't like where you're at on the depth chart, hey, it's like catch and release with fish. Let's go back in and see if we can do something better. I really think it's created a lot of mobility at the college level with respect to players, changing schools. Look at Wisconsin. One of the best quarterbacks, probably wasn't the best at Wisconsin because he only played for 1 year, but he's probably the best pro Wisconsin quarterback, Russell Wilson.
For sure.
He was a grad transfer. Well, that was unique when he did that. Now that's, if you look at the Big Ten, there's 4 or 5 of those guys every year.
Right.
I mean, the University of Illinois has got a quarterback that started at Michigan. And so it's like there's that kind of revolving door. It's amazing. And then now you've got Wisconsin's quarterback. Did he go to Notre Dame? I think he went to Notre Dame.
He's going to Notre Dame now. Yeah.
Yeah. So he could be starting for Notre Dame next year. And got beat out by a, redshirt freshman that's pretty good. So bottom line is it's good for the players, but it's not good for the sport.
Yeah. I do think that, going back to the business piece of it too, you hold the players to a standard and there's rules and regulations to whether you can or can't transfer and you got to sit out or whatever the deal is, right? But you look at some of these buyouts and some of the coaches that all of a sudden they get a better opportunity and they're going to jump ship in the middle of bowl prep and say, see you guys later. Yeah. You're going to tell a kid that he can't do it for the best, for his business. So it's a double standard. And then all of a sudden there's going to be these huge, huge paydays behind it. And you're like, man, these guys haven't had a winning season in how many years? But they're going to pay this dude $5 million a year. Wow. I wonder where the money's coming from, Craig, right? And then this kid can't transfer because of, whatever factor. And they're all different. And some it's because, hey, I'm upset at my playing time or I don't feel like I got a fair shake or whatever it is. That stuff happens. But then there's other factors. There's school factors. There's issues outside of football. It's hard to say, and I don't think it's necessarily good for the sport, but I think you go back to it becomes an issue because the NCAA in college football, they haven't been open to just say, hey, yep, we know it's a business. We understand it. They're still in the denial piece of oh, no, these guys are student athletes. Just call it what it is, man, and we'll figure out the best solution for it. But don't play that game. That's the way I see it.
Well, here's the thing. You've got a great perspective because you were a player and a coach, and you are very unbiased. Either side, you're just kind of looking at it from the big picture. I think there's a tax consequence to this whole thing that's causing the problem. Because let's just take Wisconsin. They might make $120 million in revenue for the athletic department, and they don't have to pay taxes on their revenue. And that allows them to have, 20, 30, 40% more money than a business that's doing, let's say, professional sports. If they treat it like a business, the IRS is going to come in and basically say, hey, you got to start paying taxes.
Yeah, that's something I've never thought of, but that makes a lot of sense. And that's a good point, too, because when you look at, how organizations and facilities and different things in the NFL are handled, opposed to, there's a new facility every 5 years at every university, or there's a, expansion or renovation or new stuff, new locker rooms, new this, new that. Every couple years at all these big-time universities. In the NFL, it's the complete opposite, because you want to know why? That's coming out of somebody's pocketbook. That's coming out of the owner's pocketbook. That's a business. This is just oh, we got a little extra here. We have some alumni, or from a tax standpoint, whatever it is. Hey, are we going to give some money back to the actual university? I heard a statistics, Craig, and I could be off on it, but there's only 13 athletic programs in all of NCAA athletics that actually operate in the green that can pay money back to the university. Everybody else operates at a deficit because of Title IX and a number of issues that come up. So you talk about athletic programs that have 3 revenue-generating sports that can actually, make money. Everything else, they got to spread it around. It costs kids that are paying tuition money out of their family's pocket to have, in some cases, a really bad athletic program.
The last thing I would say about the business of sport, especially at the college level, is I truly believe, and I represent coaches, but I truly believe that that's the root of the problem, because the coaches make so much money, even before they've proven that they can win, even if it's their first head coaching job. If they win a lot, they'll leave and never fulfill their contract. And if they don't win, the school's on the hook for the entire thing. And so it creates problems both ways. If you're successful, you can't keep him. And if he's unsuccessful, you got to pay two coaches.
Right. And on top of it, the amount that coordinators and position coaches are making at some universities now too.
Bill, you have two daughters and a son, and there's a lot of concern today, especially from moms, about their little boys playing football. How are you going to handle your son if he so chooses to want to play football? How old is your son, like 3 or something like that?
Yeah, he just turned 3.
Just turned 3. Okay. So we're not worried about him playing football anytime soon. But let's pretend he's 9, 10, 12, whatever the age might be. I let my boys play tackle football starting in the 6th grade. And before that, we played flag. Even though there's a lot of kids playing in the 1st grade, I was like, it doesn't make any sense. But that's every parent's choice. What is your perspective about your own son playing football in the future?
Yeah, I think it would be very similar to what you said. I didn't start playing football until I was in 7th grade. And that was not necessarily by choice. Where I was growing up in Ohio, it was, you have the weight limits or whatever. And I was a bigger kid, but I wasn't going to play up 2 age groups. So the decision was made for me. But I think back, because a bunch of my friends, they'd be in, 4th, 5th grade playing ball. And I was always jealous, like, man, I can't wait till I get to play football, right? You go back to it, and I didn't miss anything out from a development standpoint by not playing until that point. But also, I just know the studies and the items that are coming out nowadays and the flag football stuff and the 7-on-7 and the actual skill stuff revolving around football and like the individual stuff and the technique. There's such an emphasis on that now, to where the days of like the old, like the dad that knows everything but nothing about football, having his kids do the hamburger drill for an hour of practice, like I think those days are over. I hope they're over. I really do. So I would say, hey, let's talk about and truly educate. Like, this is why form is so important. This is why good coaching is important. And obviously having a number of those factors around it. And if the decision is that he wants to play, I would love it, because football has given so much to me outside. Obviously there's the physical and the injuries and all the other crap that happen. But the lessons, the friendships, the opportunity that it gave me, I wouldn't take any of that back, and I wouldn't do anything different. I wouldn't go back and say, man, I can't believe I played football. That was stupid. Some of the stuff I definitely would say, but you don't look at the whole picture and say that was a poor decision, me playing a sport. And I wish more people would get that message from former players. And there's certainly a concern about, the concussions and the educational piece and some of that stuff. I think that, 7-on-7 football and some of the flag stuff for kids up until high school, and they're figuring out different ways to do it. That's what it is. So I would never say no, but if there's a passion for it, yeah, I would let him play for sure. I hope my son, whether it's athletics or something different, he finds a passion to be a part of a team. And sometimes those factors, they go further than anything that football could, take away from you.
You played for a lot of coaches and you coached with a lot of coaches. Who, and I'm not asking you to pick favorites, I'm asking you to pick a coach that you respected and why you respected him and how he made an impact on you, not just as a football player, but as a man.
And there's so many different coaches that I played for, and I'm thankful I got an opportunity to get to know them and just learn under them. And this coach, I had an opportunity. I really never played directly under him. I played a little bit under him, but it was more so getting a chance to coach alongside of him and really be his assistant for an extended period of time. The coach's name, it's Joe Rudolph. He's the offensive coordinator, now O-line coach for Wisconsin, and he's really off the Bill Callahan tree. And the reason why I respect Coach Rudolph so much, it's not even from a football standpoint. It's just from his mentality and his work ethic standpoint, and certain lessons that he taught me over time, just being on staff with him. And you talk about perspective, and not a lot of people know this about Coach Rudy, and here's the deal. Like, he's one of the smartest guys, and when you look at a guy, we go back to, I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady or Drew Brees, but a guy that doesn't necessarily need football. He's so smart to where he had job opportunities. I mean, guy went and got his MBA at Carnegie Mellon, was set up to do investment banking, and just showed up to that job and was like, man, I'm going to be miserable doing this. But knowing that he had that as like a hay in the barn, and said, you know what I'm going to do? I can't do this, man. I'm going to go be a volunteer coach at Ohio State and just try to get a spot on the staff. A guy that, pretty much gave up everything and said, I'm going to be miserable doing this. And he always talks about, how he grew up. He grew up in Pittsburgh, and his old man ran a steel mill. And it was always that, man, I could be in a steel mill right now. I'm showing up coaching football. Like, how lucky am I? And the guy keeps that perspective, like, every single day, almost to a point where it's crazy. But when I think back on it, I'm like, man, that is something that sticks with me today, in business, from a professional, from family, from everything. It's just that work ethic that he instilled and that he instills with his players too. And I mean, he'll drive guys crazy just like every other coach, but that work ethic that he instilled in truly understanding what it is to work hard. Guys think they know what hard work is. Guys think they know what putting in hours means. But until you truly, work with a guy like that and you see it firsthand, that's when it clicks. So that's one guy. And I'm telling you, that dude's going to be one of the best head coaches someday. And everybody know, like, a lot of people around the program know it and they understand it. But I'm telling you, that is one of the best coaches that a lot of people don't know about.
Well, I know of Joe, and he's got a great reputation. And what you just described is that he has like that rookie mindset. He has that joy in his job. He's found a way in his mind, because life is a grind. Whether you're in the NFL or you're out in the NFL, and whether you're 30s or 40s or 50s or whatever, life can be a grind. And if you don't have a go-to, if you don't have a place in your head where you can go when shit gets hard, when things get tough, you don't have a place to go that's like a happy place to remind you why you're doing what you're doing, it's hard to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And he's built that in. Hey, I could be working in a steel mill. There's not going to ever be a day coaching college football, especially in the Big Ten, that it's going to be that bad.
Right. Yeah,
So
and it's that perspective, right, where you show up on a Tuesday, and that for most college football teams, depending on schedule, that's like that day, right? That's the day where you're putting the game plan in, you're going to have the longest practice, it's going to be the hardest work, it's going to be an absolute grind. But you have that, and you're like, dude, we get to play football today. Could be working in a freaking steel mill right now, and just having that mentality, and then having a chance to be a part of the staff at Pittsburgh with him and then at UW, and just seeing, how, he just has it, and it rubs off on people. And like I said, like we talked about earlier, having those guys in a locker room, like there's no secret. Like, those guys, they rub off on the team. The locker room, that's what it is. That's a cool thing to have, and it's a cool quality. And it's not easy, though. It doesn't just happen. It was cool working with them.
Okay, Bill, you came from Ohio. You went to Madison, Wisconsin, to attend University of Wisconsin, and then you stayed in Wisconsin. So do a PSA for all those kids out there that might be thinking about going to Michigan or Michigan State or Ohio State or Iowa or wherever it might be. Why is the University of Wisconsin a special place to play football?
It's the people. It sounds cliche. It really does. But it really is the people. Growing up in Ohio, I'd never been to Wisconsin. I had no idea. The first time I had heard about it was, besides watching football on TV, it was really when Coach Alvarez called me up and they came and started recruiting me. But you have an opportunity to visit Madison, and it really is a special place. And when you look at a place to as you take the step from high school to college and really become a man, it's a great balance of, school. It's a good balance of football, and then the social piece too, and a really, rich base of alumni too, from a standpoint of not monetary, but people really take a lot of pride. People have a lot of pride in the university, and I would say that echoes throughout the Big Ten too. And that's a cool thing. People are proud to say that they went to the University of Wisconsin. I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go there and just be back in the Madison area. My wife played volleyball at UW, and it's just crazy how it works out, right? I got done playing, was coaching at Pittsburgh with, Coach Christ and everybody, and just by, one man's decision deciding to leave Wisconsin as the head coach, Coach Chris got essentially his dream job and brought us back to Madison. So it's just crazy how it all works out. Yeah, people take a lot of pride in the university and being alumni. It's been fun being back and still being somewhat involved with the university and the relationships that I've been able to build around the area.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for being on Pro Mindset today. You're a Badger for life. You're an awesome client. You're a great dad. You're a great dude. And I wish you nothing but the best, and looking forward to getting together the next time I get to Madison.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. This was fun. Yeah, it's always fun going down memory lane a little bit, and I always enjoy talking with you, Craig.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pro Mindset. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can follow us on our website, promindsetpodcast.com, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pro Mindset Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you the next time.